Welcome to another episode of B2B Startup Growth. I'm Sean Eckhouse, and in this podcast, I aim to share with you wisdom from some of the smartest B2B startup leaders and professionals that I know. We talk about all aspects of marketing, sales, growth hacking, life hacking, and everything in between. Hello, everybody. In today's episode, I decided to share with you a presentation that I gave a couple of weeks ago at an event that Penguin Strategies ran in Google Campus. We were hosting CMOs and marketers from tech startups. And I covered in the presentation a few very important aspects that I believe are crucial for success of marketing teams in 2020. I got some really good feedback about the usefulness of this, so I decided to share it on the podcast. You can find in the show notes a link to a video version of this, or you can download the slides also as you're listening to the podcast, not if you're driving, of course. And that's it. Enjoy, and I'm really looking forward for your feedback. So here it comes. Hello, everybody. My name is Sean Eckhouse. I lead the strategy team in Penguin and have been working with startups, specifically B2B tech startups, in the past 10 years of my career. So I've seen a lot of CMOs. And when I say CMOs, in this case, I'm referring to, you can replace the word CMO with marketer or CRO or head of digital or founder of a startup, whatever you see fit. But so I think the principles apply to all. But I'd like to point out for you today a few of the things that I think really can make a difference in the success of CMOs. So before I start, I just need to give credit to the great Ben Horowitz, who wrote a really iconic essay about 20 years ago. By the way, it's linked here and it's still 95% relevant today. I ran across this article, I think about, 13, 14 years ago when I was heading a product management team in Mobixel. There's one here that remembers that. I remember I came across this essay. I read it. It's like a page and a half, very simple. Good product managers do this, bad product managers do that. Anybody here know this essay? No? Okay. So if you're interested, check it out. It's a really beautiful piece of training. And the reason why it really impacted me, because it reinforced a lot of things that were intuitive to me already. And I knew them because I was already then reading it, an experienced product manager. But it really reinforced what are the most important things to do, and it impacted me well. And so I'm going to take a shot today at doing something a little bit similar with CMOs. Okay, so I chose out of 30 things that I could talk about, which I think can make a difference for CMOs, I chose 5 of the things that I think I most often see that really distinguish between those who succeed in their relationship with the company and those who don't. It's a well-known secret that the CMO is one of the shortest-lived profession on the C-suite. I've read recently an article that says the average in the US for CMO is between 18 months. Okay, 18, 20 months. It's very short, unfortunately, shorter than other C-suite positions. And I think there's many reasons to that. We could, go on about it, but I picked 5 specific aspects that I think are very influential in the success of the CMO. And so if you love your job, try this out, and then maybe it will help you keep it. Okay, so point number 1, I'm going to talk about consistency. All right, so what do I mean? A good CMO values consistency just as much as quality. Now, we all want to get really high quality content out, and it's important. Quality is important. But what I see every day, unfortunately, I meet this, and my perspective is especially from looking at a lot of tech startups, right? So, and this is more characteristics of their nature. So they really are obsessed with getting it perfect. And they can Unfortunately, I'm saying this every day. I see this in marketers. They can go on editing a sentence in a blog 10 times, trying out whether this is going to offend a certain potential channel, and if word is going to be interpreted in the wrong way, maybe in the wrong context. And so they get so obsessed with it that it takes them forever to approve a blog for the marketer to release it. And the result of that is that their competitors who are a little bit freer, that go out with good enough content, their competitors show up a lot more often. And so their competitors win the game of mindshare of the audience. And so it's a delicate game. Yes, you need to balance. And I want to give 2 examples of companies that I think teams that really get it right, the balance, in my opinion. I don't know if I thought, is anybody from Saragon here today? Okay, good. So I did not get their permission to mention them, but so maybe I'll get killed later. But okay, so Saragon, if somebody here doesn't know them, they're the leading provider of 5G wireless backhaul equipment. And yay! And they have a small marketing team, and they still manage to really, I think, get a beautiful balance of quality and persistence and quantity out. And they do it by putting emphasis on in-depth content now and then, and regularly posting things that they found that they are sustainable for them, that they can sustain. So, for example, they recently came out with a series of videos, just simple to produce videos. I'll give you just a few seconds of it so you get a feeling of what it's like. This is Dudi, just simply talking about their product. I just wanted to give you the sense of what a simple video, simple to make, no fancy production, no footage. They could have shot footage of beautiful scenery and beautiful mountains of their backhaul equipment installed on some head of a mountain. And that would have cost a lot of money to go and shoot and so on. And they could have had a professional narrator do this or a beautiful model do this. And that would have taken a lot more time, and that wouldn't be sustainable. So instead, they do something simple, cute, nice, very relatable for their audience. Another example that I love, again, is there anybody here from GuardNox? Yay! So just an example of another team. I didn't get it permission because I thought they'd be okay with me. I'm showing just public stuff. So GuardNox is a automotive cybersecurity company. And they have just, entered the market about 2 years ago when there were already much more established companies in this space. And in just a matter of 2 years, they managed to generate authority in their field that really brought them to some incredible achievements. And that has been done with a modest team, just very talented team, but small.
Very small team.
Very small team. And they, the way they do it, I think, so beautifully is now and then they invest in very high quality, in-depth content, but they make sure that regularly they talk about specific things that are lighter reading, and they are very nicely presented. If you go into their blog, you'll see an example of a beautiful, beautiful, very technical blog, but simply put out it's all on brand, beautifully presented, but simple and to the level of detail that they can sustain regular posting. And that's really what's making the difference for them. And I think if I can just, give you a tip, something that I learned, I was actually surprised to learn this just a couple weeks ago. I was doing this little analysis for one of our clients. And I was looking at, actually I can mention the client is Soleno, and I was looking at the statistics for the blogs that actually converted. I was looking at all the conversions on their blogs, conversions to qualified leads. And I was looking at that traffic only, and I was looking at how much time spent on the blogs, from the blogs that were converting to qualified leads, what was the average time spent on these blogs? What are you guessing the number would be?
2 minutes.
Another guess?
4 to 5.
So the answer is between 10 and 20 seconds. That's the average spent on the blogs that we're converting, the people who are actually clicking on the call to action. Now, when I was really surprised to see that at first, and then afterwards, when I thought, is this unique to Soleno? And I went and looked for other companies that are highly technical audience. Is that consistent? And it is consistent. And it just made sense to me afterwards when I thought about it. How do I consume blogs? Like most of the blogs that I consume, I look on my mobile when I'm like off time. I swipe with my finger through the blog, and I look through. The titles are important. So if you want to give attention to something really important, it's the title, and then the subheaders of the sections in your content. That's very important because people skim through it. And if you could put one image that tells the whole message, that's great. And all the rest, all the exact words, they don't matter that much. Okay? Okay. I know if I tell it to the CTO of the company, they get really upset, but we're marketers here, right? So, okay, next point, long-term efforts. So I think a good CMO balances between short-term, mid-term, and long-term wins. Now, you're all managers here, for sure. Every manager knows they need to balance between short-term, long-term. That's trivial, right? But unfortunately, day to day, I meet CMOs who are really obsessed with the short-term wins. Now, it's not because they're stupid. It's usually the situation is that they are under extreme pressure from their manager or from their board, from their investors. And the pressure is, give me the results. By the end of the month, I want to see 40 qualified leads. By the end of this quarter, we must close 3 deals. And so they are really obsessed with whatever they can do, the quick wins, the low-hanging fruit. Let's do whatever can bring in really fast results. Now, the problem with this approach is that if you're only, focusing all of your efforts on the quick wins, on the things that you can do fast, if you try something out and it really works, then your competitors will see it, and for them it's also fast to imitate that, and then they'll be doing it too. So if you don't invest in the long-term stuff, you're not going to be building up assets that are difficult to imitate. Okay? So, well, the other end of the mistake is to neglect the short term, but this is much less typical of Israelis, so I see this less. Okay, so I want to give an example of things that you can do to, when you're really a smart CMO, and we have here an example of one, by the way, that things that you should do if you want to invest in the long term, in things that are take more time to build, but they have a lot of value, like building a community. Probably a lot of you know the famous stories of how Slack started, how did they become such a phenomenal success. And I think one of the biggest factors for their success was that in the beginning, they built a community for programmers, and they were sharing with them their whole process of how they were developing the product, and it became a very collaborative and supportive community, and it helped them a lot to grow. And I won't go on about communities. That could be a whole separate thing. For sure, if a marketer is only worried about, showing the ROI immediately by the end of this month, they're not going to start a community, right? That takes time to build. Another example, a really good one, I think, of something that marketers can do, and it takes time, more effort, but it's sometimes really worth it, is write a book about your industry. Here's an example of a company, Persenso. They do AI for maintenance of machinery for factories, and they have actually recorded a podcast episode with Avi Nowitz, who was leading marketing for Persenso, and they have managed within a year of content marketing with a very lean team to build up authority in a way that brought them a beautiful result. They were acquired in October and very successfully. They didn't disclose the numbers, but that was a really nice win for them. And a lot of that, in my opinion, is due to the really smart content marketing and authority they built based on that. And writing a book is one of the ways that you can really put yourself in front of your competitors. In some industries, especially in more old-fashioned industries, you go to a meeting and you bring your book. That's really impressive. Or you manage to get your book really ranked high up on Amazon as the authority of that field that can do amazing stuff. And it's not something you can show ROI on in a week or a month. So practical advice to you is this. Every week when the minute you sit there and you plan your week or your month, look at your calendar and try to map out what are the times that you're investing in your short-term wins and what's the time that you're dedicating to things that are long-term. And those are the things you really need to block in your calendar because otherwise they get neglected. And if you do this as a regular practice to block your calendar for things that are important for the long term, then you'll get to them. Next point, customer journey. Everybody who is a marketer knows what customer journey is. I'll start with a bad example, okay? The bad CMO compares performance of marketing channels based on lead source, okay? Now, I'm sure all marketers almost have in their dashboards some format of reports like that go and show different channels and what are the statistics and what are the results that each channel brings, how much traffic, how many leads, how many conversions, how many deals from every kind of channel, right? Here's even a slide that I took from a deck that is provided by one of the leading VCs in the world. It's provided to their portfolio companies, and they tell them, this is how we want you to report quarterly to the board. Okay, you got to show me every channel of marketing and what is the business that channel brought, okay? Now, to prepare such a slide, and now I'm not denying that this has some valuable information in it. I'm not denying. But let's face it, usually the way that's the information that's most accessible for these people who are putting these slides is first touch attribution, okay? Meaning, what do I mean? I'm attributing this deal's close to the webinars because the first touch with a contact from that company was from a webinar, okay? But we all know that, especially in B2B, but this is true in all marketing, but especially in B2B, the sales cycles are long and they include many people and they include many, many touches between the brand and the person, and between the brand and your clients or your various audiences within the clients. And just showing the first touch is such a small part of the equation. So first of all, my recommendation is do multi-touch attribution. So you gotta acknowledge the weight the different touches along the journey have. And you have to make sure that everybody else in the company that's involved in decision-making also understands that. And if you implement that in reports, that's great. By the way, I know that HubSpot lately has started to support multi-touch attribution as well. So that's great. But I think more important than the quantitative reports, it's the qualitative understanding, the qualitative research that you do on your customer journey to really understand what's the state of mind of your audience at every step of the journey. Now, in order to understand, by the way, common situations that I meet every day again, is that founders of the company or the people who are really have closed the early adopter deals with clients, they know very well, they understand very well the bottom of the funnel. They're just because they're in close interaction with the people once they're already reaching out to them and talking to them. So the bottom of the funnel, they understand how it works, what's their mindset, and so on. But the part that they often miss out is the top of the funnel. What happens a whole year or 2 years before they even talk to you? What is their mindset? What are the alternative solutions that they're actually considering? What are their beliefs around what you're selling? And my recommendation to you as CMOs, if you want to be a really great CMO, be the master of the customer journey. Know that customer journey to the details more than anybody else in your company so that you can really stand behind your ideas of how to market it. I don't know how many, I'm not going to embarrass you, so I won't ask you how many have a playbook, a marketing or a marketing playbook, okay? But I would just say this. A bad CMO doesn't have a marketing playbook, okay?
What is this marketing playbook? It's a document that clearly and as simply as possible communicates to all the involved parties exactly how each part of the customer acquisition funnel works. What are all the sources of leads, how to convert them to MQLs, to SQLs, how we treat an opportunity, how we nurture opportunities to become deals, and how we nurture clients to become advocates, and so on. All the different workflows that we have implemented. Now, if your company is one of many that don't have a playbook, but you are still implementing various workflows, you're probably relying on the fact that all this logic is documented within the settings of your various marketing automation tools.
And if somebody in your company now wants to, and somebody in your team now wants to add an action or change something, or they have an idea, if they're going to now initiate a new workflow and they don't understand the whole thing and they don't have good visibility to the whole thing, are you going to trust that they're now going to go into HubSpot, check 100 screens to figure it out before they add that workflow? No, reality, they don't do that. And then what happens? Things start to break. And then what happens? Your reports are messy. They don't, the data is unclean. It doesn't really make sense. And then you think, that doesn't work. And then you're really upset and your reports don't work and everything doesn't work. So why you need a playbook? I think I hope I explained it. So the bottom line is this: a good CMO communicates the company's marketing playbook clearly and coherently to all collaborators. If you want them all to be in sync, you gotta have a playbook. So it's your lucky day today because we're giving you the opportunity to download our template if you want to use it. Of course, you can do your own. Doesn't matter what format you use, but this is really convenient. We've developed it, after years of doing this for many companies. I think we put something together that's really convenient. So you use it if you want. And I'm going to my last point, and that is going to conclude my points for today, and that is experiments. Okay, so a bad CMO will not share the thought process with management and will be blamed for taking the wrong route once results lag behind expectations. Now, I think if there's one thing that's, most influential of all the things that I mentioned here, it's most influential on your chances to have a really good relationship with your management and board, it's this point. So if you would take one thing, this is the point. Okay, so I want to tell you, what do I mean in practice? Okay, I'm sure you marketers, you all run experiments. You do A/B testing, you try out campaigns, you do all kinds of things that are experiments. But I'm referring to a mindset here where everything that the CMO invests in, or the bigger things, not the little things that their management don't want to care about, but the bigger things, you should put out as an experiment and explain why you're doing it. What is your hypothesis? What do you expect to happen if this succeeds? What do you expect to do if you see that it doesn't work? How long should it play out? How long should you wait to see the result? And what's the justification? What's the business justification of trying this out? Now, just to give you an example, how this works. By the way, very important to mention, my slide shows it. We adopted this format from Ash Maurya, who I adore, and this is his great book, Running Lean, highly recommended, one of my favorite business books. And the way we do this is every month or every quarter, depending on what topic, we review our plans. I'll give you an example. Let's say I want to, as a CMO, I'm a CMO of Penguin, and I want to do an experiment. I want to now release to the public our playbook template, which I showed you, hoping that that would help our audience put together a really good marketing playbook. And that would, help them out. They'll appreciate it. And they'll remember Penguin when they need our services, meaning that will generate leads for us. So that's an assumption. The problem with that, I go to my CEO, Perry, and I tell him, how about that idea? He might say to me, wait a minute, that's risky because that's our IP and we developed it and we make a business from making playbooks for companies. Why would we give it away, right? That might, wear off our value. Now they won't need us. They'll put together the playbook without us, and that's going to eat up from our business. And I might argue that, listen, but this is so valuable. Our audience is really going to appreciate it. And when they put it together, they're going to see so much value that it's going to pay off. And so we have a discussion on that. Okay, that goes on. And then we decide together, the CMO and the CEO or the board or whoever decides in your company. And once we decide together to go on with an experiment like that, then we're both accountable. If in 2 months from now, I will look at our data and I will see that, wow, everybody has downloaded our template. They put together playbooks on their own. They now don't need any help in sorting out their marketing automation. And it's not a good idea. If we'll see that, then I'll go back to the drawing board and I'll sit back again with my management and we'll see, okay, what should we do next? But we're both accountable for taking that decision. It's not like the CMO is trying out these strange things and it's not working out. So bye. Okay. So I think you got to be pulling on the same team with your management. That's the message. So to conclude the points that I've made today. I show up consistently. That's very, very important. Just as important as the quality. Balance between the things you do for short term and long term. Don't neglect the long term. Make sure you are the maestro of your customer journey. Have a playbook. Make sure you have a playbook of your marketing automation so everybody knows what's in your head. And last and not least, run everything as experiments to improve your collaboration with management.
You've been listening to the B2B Startup Growth Podcast, bringing you the latest wisdom on marketing, sales, growth hacking, and life as a startup leader. I'm your host, Shoham Eckhaus, and if there is a particular topic that you'd like me to cover soon, please reach out to me on b2bstartupgrowth.com and let me know.